Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Femcel Psychology series. And in this video, I want to talk about married femcels or femcels who are in a relationship, how they behave, and how they often try to cockblock single women, and how they have this hatred and envy and resentment towards women who are single. I have never seen anybody on YouTube talk about this, so I wanted to talk about it. This morning I was eating my protein Pop-Tart and drinking my coffee, and I was just thinking about how a lot of the women who try to cockblock you as a single girl, oftentimes these are married women or women in relationships. For those of you who follow my Patreon, you know that I recently did a story time about a femcel in a relationship who I had to cut off due to her unhinged behavior. So be sure to join the Patreon if you want custom content or if you want more story times. But let's talk about the life and the psychology of a married femcel. Number one, she is unsatisfied sexually in her relationship. So there are a lot of women who are with men who are not satisfying them in the bedroom. Sometimes when it comes to the hypergamous girlies, sometimes when it comes to women who date super old guys, or maybe their husband or boyfriend is super fat, a lot of those women are unsatisfied sexually. So she has to please herself and sneak around in the house and basically please herself when that guy is not around, or she has to fake orgasms. You know, these are the women who spend months and years faking orgasms. So they're not really, they're not manifesting the type of sex life that they want to have. And you guys know this is more of a feminism leaning channel. So I am all for women feeling satisfied in the bedroom. I just feel like sex should not be something where only men get to benefit from it. And I'm tired of women kind of promoting this culture where it's like, oh, okay, as long as he's satisfied, that's fine. I will just be sexually unsatisfied. No, that's what leads to women acting like married femcels or femcels in a relationship. And they feel like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place because they feel like they can't cheat and they can't leave their husband or boyfriend because they feel like that's a stupid reason to leave, because society shames women who actually care about having a fulfilling sex life. So if you leave a guy because of like bad sex or something, people will actually shame you and they'll call you a hoe, or they'll say you're really shallow. So a lot of women in relationships who are sexually unsatisfied, they're just living for weeks and months and years with this resentment. And this is why one of the behaviors you'll see from them is they will start to live vicariously through single women. They will start to struggle with limerence, so they will have an obsession over like a certain male celebrity. You know, they'll be like, ooh, I gotta watch my show. Ooh, I gotta watch Bridgerton. Ooh, I gotta watch Law and Order because, you know, their crush is on that show. So they will be sexually fantasizing about the men on their TV shows. So that's literally the most exciting part of her life in terms of sex. It's watching a movie with George Clooney in it. You know, it's watching these TV shows, these romance TV shows, and kind of fantasizing. So a lot of femcels in relationships, it's almost as if they are sexually trapped. It's almost as if they are unable to express their sexual desires for various reasons. And that leads me to number two. Her boyfriend or husband is cheating on her, and so she does not want to have sex with him. Okay, so that's another type of femcel that is in a relationship. She is celibate in her relationship because the guy is literally fucking around with other women. So he literally is contracting STDs. You know, these are the women who stay married or they stay with their boyfriend for a particular image, but behind closed doors, she is actually afraid to have sex with him because she does not want to catch any diseases. These are often the same types of women who like to shame single women. Another aspect of a femcel in a relationship is they are very threatened by beautiful single women. You know, they're very threatened by you if you're sexy and gorgeous because they literally feel like you might take their man. Their man has already cheated on them before with a woman who has your body type, your skin tone, your ethnicity, your hair texture, your personality. So these women who are femcels in relationships, oftentimes they are extra insecure because their man, he is not focusing his sexual attention all on her. So these are women who have been sexually neglected. So instead of him like, you know, making sure that she feels safe sexually, no, he's out looking for another woman. He's out looking for side chicks. He's looking for a woman who's younger and hotter, or, you know, she caught him on his phone with all these IG models or in these girls' DMs, and those girls happen to look like you. So if you have an Instagram model type of look. If you look like one of those Fashion Nova models or something like that, if you look like an early 2000s video vixen, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Married femcels and femcels in relationships, oftentimes they're very jealous of you because their husband is secretly seeking after women who look like you. So these are the basic Bettys at work who can't stand to see you getting attention from male coworkers. These are the women who they don't want the pretty girl to get any attention at all because in her mind, she has a lot of sexual trauma. She has a lot of emotional trauma around her lack of sexual desirability in her relationship. And so if she sees you and she knows that you are sexually desirable, she will often try to cock block you. She will try to make you feel as invisible as she feels, because she is literally a femcel in a relationship. You would think that somebody in a relationship is happy and that's why they're in it. But no, a lot of people are only in relationships for codependent reasons, or they're in a relationship for image purposes. You know, it makes her feel good to know that she is Mrs. Jackson instead of just a single woman. You know, so she's happy to be Mrs. Watson, and she's been married for 35 years, and that is the only thing that she feels she has going for herself. So without the title of wife, without the title of girlfriend, she feels worthless. But a lot of single, pretty privileged women, we are walking around with multiple titles in society. You know, as a pretty privileged woman, you have the title of being the pretty girl. You have the title of maybe being a model. You have a title of being wealthy, maybe. You have a title of being a social media entrepreneur. Whatever it is, you have all of these other titles in society that you can enjoy. So it's not like you feel invisible if you don't have a man, if that makes sense. But for a lot of married femcels or femcels in relationships, they feel invisible without a man. The only time they feel visible in life is when that man looks at her. And so that's why you see some of these women where they'll stay in these marriages for 10 or 20 years, because they've literally built their image around being a wife or whatever, or maybe they built their self-esteem around it. And some of them will say this. You know what a woman's mindset is, because these are the red pill types of women. You know, they'll give red pill talking points and they'll say things like, well, you can't keep a man. Well, they're saying that because in their mind, a man is a prize, as opposed to herself being the prize or both of them being the prize. No, she has that male-centered view where it's like, no, only men are the prize. Women are not the prize. Another aspect of the married femcel is these are the women who are married but lonely, or they're in a relationship, maybe they live with their boyfriend, but they're still lonely because their boyfriend or husband is not emotionally attractive. So because she doesn't feel like he's an actual man, because she feels like he's a child or like he's her son, usually mothers don't want to have sex with their sons. And so the sexual attraction has gone down. This actually happens in a lot of marriages. As soon as they get married and the wife starts to have to clean up after him, you know, she's paying 50% of the bills or she's paying the majority of the bills, and then he's just sitting around playing video games. Over time, that causes the woman to not be sexually attracted to him because she associates him with being a teenager. She associates him with being a child. So that's another type of married femcel, or a woman who's like a femcel in a relationship. So again, these are some of the basic Bettys at your job. You know the woman at your job who's a CFO or she's a CEO? Well, you probably don't know, but her husband, in a lot of cases, these women's husbands are like dusty men, or they have like no job at all, or they haven't worked in 20 years. I've literally met women in their 50s where their husbands have not worked in over 20 years. So that is something that can cause the woman to lose sexual attraction to her own husband or boyfriend because she feels like he's not a protector, he's not a provider, he's not masculine. She feels like he is acting like a little boy, or like she has to raise a child. She almost feels like she's babysitting him. And so this makes her not want to have sex. And so this is another type of woman who is often threatened by the single women, because as a single woman, you represent freedom to her. You have a type of freedom that she doesn't have. You get to celebrate your body. You can walk around in a bikini and soak up all the attention. You know, you can go to Coachella and wear your cute little crop top and just be carefree. You don't have to worry about sexually pleasing a man that you're not attracted to. You don't have to deal with the trauma of having a bad sexual experience every single night, or having an unsatisfying sexual experience every night for 15 years. I mean, think about that trauma. Think about the level of trauma that a woman is experiencing if she is openly sleeping with a guy for 10 or 15 years and she has never been satisfied from that. Those women are dreading having sex. Those women view sex as a chore. They start to have a bad relationship with their own sexuality. They start to have a bad relationship with their own feminine side, with their sensual side. And so when they see a woman like you who is single, you're not suffering from bad sexual trauma on a nightly basis for 20 years. You're not suffering from all of these different types of traumas that they're suffering from. And so this is why a lot of married femcels and femcels in relationships get jealous of you. It's because you're literally not walking around with the same insecurities as them. Okay, number 5, she is fat. For a lot of women who are in relationships, if they gain a whole bunch of weight, if they become obese over time, maybe they had babies and then they never snapped back, they never had the discipline to keep themselves in check. A lot of women, they start to suffer with insecurity. They start to suffer with insecurity around their body because they don't feel sexy or sensual anymore while being obese. Or maybe their own boyfriend or husband is not attracted to them anymore. Like, he doesn't react when she wears the booty shorts and the belly shirt. He doesn't react the same way when she's 300 pounds wearing that outfit. But maybe before, when she was skinny, he used to get excited. So a lot of women who become femcels, sometimes it's actually due to her own weight gain and her own lack of self-care for her body. And this can happen for a number of reasons. Like I said, it could be that she's in a 50-50 relationship and that she's she's busy taking care of the kids. She neglects herself. But that actually hinders that woman's sex life because she literally does not feel sexy. Like I said in previous videos, if a woman is obese, her digestive system is overwhelmed 24/7. So she literally just ate 3,000 calories. Of course she's not in the mood to have sex. She literally has to go boo-boo all the time. She literally has indigestion and she's trying to hold in her farts and her burps 24/7 because she literally eats 5,000 calories every day. So of course she's not going to feel sexy and sensual. Of course she doesn't want to put on a thong. She's going to burn a hole in that thong because she's trying to hold in her diarrhea. Okay, I'm done going on my rant. But that is something that stops women from having a satisfying sex life in their marriages or in their relationships. It's her own body, her relationship with her own body. And so these are the basic Bettys who make fun of your body. So maybe you're just slim thick or something, or maybe you're skinny and this woman is obese and she starts making fun of you. She starts randomly bringing up what you're eating at work. She starts making fun of you because you chose to have soup at work. Meanwhile, she's been eating pizza for breakfast. This literally happened to me at a job before. My boss, who was very obese, she had to be damn near 400 pounds. When I say refrigerator, no, I mean an actual refrigerator, the actual weight of a refrigerator. I have not seen anyone that big in a long time. So she had to be damn near 400 pounds minimum. And I remember she literally would eat pizza for breakfast. She would talk shit about what other people are eating. And it's bitch, you ate 5 pizza pockets and you have the audacity to talk shit about skinnier women and what they're eating. That is femcel type of behavior. These women, even if they are in relationships, their relationships are unsatisfying. Okay? Number 6, a woman could be a married femcel or a femcel in a relationship because she settled. So she didn't actually get the man that she wanted. She was just willing to settle for whatever came after her. So she settled for the broke man. She settled for the short, fat, bald guy with only 2 teeth and he's got a lazy eye and he's got a bald circle in the middle of his head. She settled for the guy that has the giant nose hairs coming out of his nostrils. So she was living in a state of scarcity. And she was afraid of hitting the wall, or she was afraid of never being married. She allowed herself to be controlled by fear. And so she settled for a man that she is not physically attracted to at all. Or maybe she was physically attracted to him, but he has all of these immature behaviors. So now she's going 50-50. Now she's suffering, or it's a hypogamous type of thing. He's not helping with the kids. So it's because she settled. That is why she ended up being sexually unsatisfied, because there's literally nothing for her to be turned on by. There's nothing about that man that excites her. She's not excited by how he looks. She's not excited by his bank account. She's not excited by how he treats her. She's not excited about his morals. She's not excited about his character. Literally, there's nothing about that man that excites her. She simply settled because she was afraid of being alone. So she's in that relationship for codependent reasons. And so sex was the last thing on her mind. Like having an enjoyable sex life, that's the last thing that was on her mind. Think about the women who have spent 20, 30, 40, 50 years in these types of marriages. Imagine how much sexual trauma that woman has. Imagine having sex every single day, 365 days a year for 50 years, and you've never enjoyed it in your whole life. I consider that to be a form of trauma. So that's another aspect of why women become femcels in their own marriages or relationships. It's because they're trying to protect themselves from sexual traumas. Number 7, her man has these sexual kinks that she is not down with. She doesn't want to be whipped and beaten and choked and have things set on fire. And, she doesn't want to do all these crazy things that he wants to do, but she's too embarrassed to break up with him over that. She's too embarrassed to get a divorce because of that. And so now she just has to settle with dealing with his porn addiction, dealing with him trying to explore all of his kinks outside of her. And that leads me to number 8. He has a porn addiction, or he would rather have other women than her. She is literally not wanted in her own household. She's not wanted in her own relationship. He actually feels like it's a chore to have sex with her because, maybe she has bad hygiene and he didn't tell her. Maybe he's not sexually attracted to her anymore and then he doesn't want to tell her. And so instead, he just avoids sex altogether. And he just says like, oh, my testosterone is low, or I'm tired, or my stomach hurts. So in these cases, the man is actually the one who is avoiding her. But of course, he doesn't want to leave her because, hey, she's paying 50% of the bills. He can't afford to pay for that house on his own. He can't afford to take care of those children without her. He doesn't want to have to go through a child support case and go through an entire divorce case. And so he is receiving non-sexual benefits from having her in his life, but at the same time, he's just not sexually attracted to her. So he will avoid sex at all costs, and maybe he will rely on things like pornography, masturbation, going to chat rooms, being in Discord groups, being in Reddit groups, going to girls on Instagram. He has all these other ways to express his sexuality. Usually it's online or occasionally with actual sex workers and prostitutes. He will be expressing his sexuality outside of her, and so he's actually avoiding her. That's another type of married femcel, or a femcel in a relationship. It's the one where her man is actively avoiding her sexually. And so that's a part of why some of these women demonize you. If you're a celibate woman, some of these women will actually project onto celibate women, and they'll be like, oh, well, that's why you don't have a man or nobody wants you. When in reality, she is actually either celibate herself in her marriage, or she is extremely sexually unsatisfied in her relationship. So it's really just a form of projection. And then another thing they'll do is they will shame women who actually embrace being sexy, whether it's via your clothing, whether it's via your Instagram, just whatever it is. And I'm not talking about being overtly sexual, because I believe that being sexy actually exists on a spectrum. You can have sexy makeup on. You could have a sexy lipstick. You could have a sexy top on without showing everything. So I feel like sometimes women who are femcels, they have this black and white thinking when it comes to women's sexuality. They feel like either you're a pure Virgin Mary or you're a whore. So it's like a Madonna whore complex. So if you're not dressing like a nun, covered up from head to toe, you're automatically a hoe. A lot of women with internalized misogyny, they tend to project this misogyny onto the carefree women who like to dress however they want. Another type of femcel in a relationship is the woman who became a femcel after kids. So I know that there are a lot of hormonal reasons and medical reasons as to why some women, they're not turned on and stuff after they have kids. But this happens in a lot of marriages and relationships. So after you became his baby mama, or after you guys had kids and you realized that you would be the one taking care of the newborn 24/7, your sex drive instantly went down. And this kind of ties back into him acting like a little boy, or him, kind of not taking responsibility for his own children. But that's another thing that causes some women to become femcels in their own relationships. They don't want to spend the whole day breastfeeding and burping the child and changing the child and soothing the child's emotions and, regulating that baby's emotions. And then once it gets to nighttime, now she has to try to put on some uncomfortable lingerie and then bust it wide open. So a lot of women, after they have babies, they literally do not have the physical or emotional energy in order to even be sexual. Because if you think about sex, it requires creativity. A woman expressing her sensual side, that does require some form of creativity. It does require some form of femininity because, you have to think about like, okay, how do I want to do the sexy makeup? How do I want to do my cute corset outfit? Or how do I want to like accentuate my body to where I'm having fun with my partner? Or, so it does require a little bit of planning and a little bit of like creativity. You kind of have to be excited, if that makes sense. You want to get excited about expressing your femininity in a sensual way. But for a lot of new mothers or just busy mothers in general, it literally just destroys that aspect of themselves because the husband is literally just not doing his part, or the baby daddy is not doing his part. Or another reason that women become married femcels or femcels in relationships is because of unmet expectations. So she thought that after she had the baby by him, that he would finally marry her. She thought that once they got married, that he would step up to the plate and provide for her. She thought that once she moved in with him, that they would just, that it would be like a sleepover every night and that it would be romantic. So she's got all of these unmet expectations in her relationships. She's got unmet expectations in terms of her own life or her own body. She thought that she was more disciplined than she really is. So these are the women who failed at their weight loss goals. They failed at hitting their own body goals. She puts on the lingerie and it just doesn't hit. It doesn't look the same as how she imagined it in her mind. She put on the bikini and the bikini is not giving on her. So she's got a lot of unmet expectations. She's got a lot of dashed hopes and dreams. A lot of her dreams didn't come to pass or whatever. And so that carefree side of her femininity, kind of that sensual side and just like being able to let loose and stuff, she doesn't have that quality anymore. That part of her femininity has died off due to having so many traumas. And I do see this with a lot of women who come from underprivileged backgrounds. They talk about muling and they talk about like having on a cape for everybody else. Well, yeah, if you're a workhorse and a work mule, of course you're not going to feel sexy. If you're constantly putting on a cape and acting in a masculine role, trying to save everybody and be the Superman for everybody 24/7, that's eventually going to get exhausting. So you're not going to be tapped into that carefree sensual side unless you become a sexual mule, because that's what a lot of women end up becoming. That's why I say that they're still on the femcel spectrum, because her sexuality is just, she's being used as a sexual workhorse or an ex-slave for a man that she's not attracted to, or a man that's not even providing, or a man that, he failed in some way. And so that is still a femcel type of behavior, because instead of her sexual life being something that she looks forward to or something exciting, or instead of simply just being celibate and single, which is much easier, she decides to put herself through the mental and emotional torment just so she can say in public, oh, I have a man and you can't keep a man, and too bad, you should have chose better. That's why your man left you. That's why your man cheated on you. My man's been with me for 30 years. And this is why a lot of women do that my man, my man, my man thing. And by the way, it's not just red pill women that do this. I have seen some divestors and swirlers doing this. I have seen some hypergamous women with that same my man, my man, my man rhetoric. And that leads me to my next point that turns women into married femcels or femcels in relationships. It's putting that man on a high pedestal. So because the man has money, because the man is white, because the man is tall and buff, or he has tats, or he has dreads, or whatever it is that's your type, because he fits your type, you put him on a pedestal and you prioritize his sexual pleasure over your own. And so you're not even having fun. You don't like whatever you're doing. You're getting out of bed sore the next day, not in a good way. So you didn't enjoy it at all. He's having the time of his life. You're basically like a sexual entertainer at that point. So you're a professional ex-worker for him, or you're an ex-slave for him. So for some women, they try to do all these things to try to keep the man's attention because they're scared that he won't give her all of his sexual attention, which is a valid fear because we know that statistically that is true. I've talked about porn statistics on this channel. I've talked about how I believe it's 90% of men can't even go 30 days without viewing porn. So, that's a valid fear that their man won't even give them that type of attention for too long. But a lot of women become these married femcels because they attach sex to slavery. They view it as a chore because they're like, oh shit, I just got done getting off my 9 to 5. I just got done cooking all day. I didn't even get to work out today. I've gained 15 pounds this month. Now I have to try to put on some booty shorts or whatever and like do a little twerking dance or try to do this lap dance or whatever and try to pretend like I like it. So it's like this overwhelming feeling where, you've got all of these emotions flooding you, and that is not how, that's not a healthy emotional state. And so a lot of women, they're actually experiencing this emotional letdown or this emotional trauma, or they feel like they're putting in all of the work sexually. Like they're carrying the relationship sexually. So she's the one who's always putting on the booty shorts. She's the one who's always seducing him. She's the one who's always initiating. She's the one who has to go out of her way just to get his attention or just to keep his attention. She's the one who is listening to podcasts about how to please a man. She's the one learning about male anatomy and how to like where to touch or where to kiss or whatever. And he's not doing any of that. So she is actually carrying the load of the relationship in that area. That's another form of muling. That's another form of putting on the cape. You're hoping to put on your cape and save his sex life in exchange for what? Maybe him paying your bill, or in exchange for him not cheating on you. That leads me to my next point. Some women try to utilize sex as a tool to keep the man from cheating. Obviously, that's not going to work. But some women, they try to use that tool, because they're just scared that if she doesn't sleep with him every single day, or if she doesn't do whatever he says, then suddenly he's just going to go find another woman. So that's their way of competing with you. They're competing with you as a single woman. They're competing with you as the IG baddie. They're competing with you as the woman at work who looks like a model. So you don't even know that you're actually in an invisible competition with these married femcels or femcels in relationships. Also, let's talk about some of the signs that your friend or family member is either a married femcel or she's a femcel in a relationship. Number one, she immediately starts gaining a whole bunch of weight. Now, I'm not talking about the happy weight, okay? I'm talking about 50, 60, 70, 80, 150 pounds. This is because she is eating her emotions. Okay, she's eating her emotions, or she's going through a lot of emotional trauma, and she's using food as a coping mechanism. She's using food to comfort herself. Okay, another reason why this extreme weight gain can happen is because she has begun neglecting herself. So maybe she was always this carefree, beautiful, fit woman when you first met her. Maybe this is one of your friends. And then as soon as she gets married, suddenly she's no longer going to yoga with you. She's no longer going to Pilates class. She doesn't like going cycling anymore. She doesn't have time for it because Scott is busy playing video games. And so now she has to be slaving over the stove. She has to spend all of her time cooking cultural or ethnic meals for her husband. This is another thing that people don't talk about with interracial relationships, by the way. And this is also how I know that a lot of women who talk about swirling, that they've never been in an interracial relationship long term. Because if you have, you would know that a part of that relationship dynamic is that you're going to be learning his culture. So you are going to be learning how to cook Hawaiian food, how to cook Hispanic food properly, how to make African food, whatever it is, whatever continent he's from or whatever background he's from, you're going to be learning how to do those things. And so one of the things that turns women into these married femcels is self-neglect. And so that's another reason why you see a lot of women suddenly gaining weight. It's because they're neglecting themselves. They don't have time to work out anymore. They don't have time to do their skincare. That's why suddenly they've got a face full of acne, when before they used to have smooth skin. Like, I've literally known some girls to where when I met them, they were so ambitious. They were so pretty. They had all of these hobbies and stuff. And then the next time I see them after they've gotten married, they look like they've aged 10 years. Well, it's because they're neglecting themselves with their skincare routine. They don't have time to do skincare anymore. They don't have time to get their teeth whitened or to go to the doctor's office. So that's another way that you can tell that a woman is unsatisfied in her relationship. It's because she is not thriving in that relationship. A relationship is supposed to make both people thrive. I thought that was the whole point of it. I thought that both people are supposed to be thriving. I thought both people are supposed to be happy. But you can always tell when the woman is unhappy because she'll neglect herself. She will start gaining all this weight. Or number 3, she will become emotionally unstable. So the confident woman that you always knew her to be, this happy, carefree woman, suddenly she's bitter. Suddenly she's jealous of you. Suddenly she's obsessing and living vicariously through single women. By the way, that's another big one that a lot of people overlook. If she is married or if she is in a relationship and she is acting like she's single or she is living vicariously through single women, she is not happy in her relationship. I don't care what anybody says. Any woman who is happy with a man that she's with, why would she be obsessed with other men's dicks? Like, seriously, why would she be obsessed with what her single friends are doing? Why would she be jealous that you guys went out to the bar? Why would she be jealous of that? She shouldn't be jealous if she's truly happy with her life. And so this is why sometimes you'll see women who are married or in these relationships, they will shame you for going out to bars. They'll shame you for wearing that sexy top in the summertime. They shame you for wearing a halter top. They'll be like, oh, that's a slutty top. And I'm like, sis, she's literally wearing a halter top. Like, how is it slutty? She's just wearing a top with some strings on it. Like, it's not like she's showing her nipples or something. How is it slutty? So she'll start projecting this internalized misogyny onto you, or she will start kind of living vicariously through single women, or sometimes you may even see these married women, they might ask to go out with you and your single friends, and then you might see them trying to flirt with guys at the bar. You might see these basic betties at your job flirting with men at work. So that's another way that she's a married femcel or a femcel in a relationship, because she is still seeking after outside male validation to the extreme, to the point where, you're shocked. You're looking at her crazy, like, what is wrong with you? Like, I remember one time at one of my jobs, there was this woman who was literally a CFO. She was just all over some of the guys, and it was very cringy to watch. This woman was literally in her mid-50s. She was just basically throwing herself at the guys in their 40s. So sometimes you'll see these cringy behaviors from these married women or these women in relationships, to where whenever they get outside of the house, they start throwing themselves at other guys. They start doing these embarrassing, cringy things that you wouldn't even do as a single woman. Like, they'll be walking around drunk and stuff like that. Oh, that's another aspect of being a married femcel or in an unsatisfying relationship. She begins to rely on substances. Unfortunately, all of the housewives that I know, except one, all of the housewives that I know, unfortunately, are on different types of, they're on either ketamine, they smoke weed every day, or they drink a lot of beer, wine, alcohol, tequila, vodka, whatever. They drink a lot. So that's another sign that that woman is emotionally or sexually unsatisfied with her life that she's living. It's because it affects her emotional state negatively. So oftentimes they will manifest this through a dependency on substances, or a dependency on like alcohol, or sometimes a dependency on food. They become a food addict. So that's why they're gaining 150 pounds after getting married. It's because instead of doing drugs, food is their drug. Cupcakes and cookies and burgers and fries, that's their drug. That is how they cope with the relationship that they're in. So they're unhappy in their relationships, then they'll try to project it onto you, or they may express extreme jealousy towards you because their husband has looked at you. Maybe you came to visit. I know that this has happened to some of you guys here in the Pretty Girl Club. Maybe you came to visit your friend who's married, or you came to visit your friend who has a boyfriend, and then maybe you left, and then her boyfriend says that you're pretty. Her boyfriend says that you're hot, or he makes a comment about your ass or something. He makes some sort of inappropriate comment, to where now that woman is being emotionally affected by that. She's being emotionally tormented in that relationship. And that leads me to number 10, which is just overall disappointment. So a lot of women have actually been lied to about what a marriage is. A lot of women have been lied to about what a relationship is and what a satisfying relationship is like. So when they get into these relationships, they're expecting to be so happy, they're expecting to be so excited, and then they end up miserable. They realize that, oh wait, he's actually not paying as much attention to me as I wanted him to. Oh wait, he never takes me out on dates. I used to go on vacations all the time as a single woman, but now that I'm married, I don't go on any vacations because he just always wants to save money. He's a penny pincher. So a lot of times women get into these relationships and marriages where her lifestyle has changed for the worst. I mean, to be honest, some of the worst times in my life have been around guys that live these bad lifestyles. So like, if you're the type of woman who lives a soft life as a single woman, you know how they say that unmarried, child-free women are the happiest? Okay, so if you're living this soft life, you get to drive to the beach on the weekends, you're going on all these vacations because it's just you. You don't have to pay for other people. If you go from that to suddenly paying 50-50 in a house of 5 people, because now you've had 3 kids by this man, yeah, your lifestyle is going to change. So living the soft life, it may be a little bit more difficult for you to attain. So a lot of women they end up struggling with depression, actually, because they had this Disney fairy tale romanticized dream of what a relationship is, or they have this romanticized dream of a man. And actually, number 11 is they have been deceived by the man. So sometimes a man will actually come in, he'll start off by providing for you, he will be super sweet to you, he will like do everything correctly for the first year or the first 2 years or whatever. He'll do all the stuff right, but then as soon as you get pregnant, he flips. Or as soon as you get married, he flips. As soon as you move in together, he flips. It's almost like you don't recognize him as a person because he stops caring because now he's got you. So all that vetting, you know how they talk about vetting? First of all, there's no such thing as perfect vetting. So if you're one of those people who believes that you can vet your way into a perfect relationship, I would love for you to make a YouTube video telling us all how to vet your way into a perfect relationship. I would love to hear that. But for a lot of women, though, they'll get into these relationships with these men, and the man has actually, he has put in most of the investment up front. This is a pattern that I've noticed with a lot of men. A lot of men will put in the biggest investment up front, right? So he's going to start off whining and dining you. He's protecting and providing, you know, because you're just the girlfriend right now. He's trying to get you to sign that marriage contract. He's trying to get you to get pregnant by him. He's trying to get you to move in with him. And then over time, he will begin to use weaponized incompetence to get you to go from being a kept woman to suddenly going 50-50. I've seen it happen so many times, you guys. I study sociology and psychology on a daily basis. I've seen this happen so many times. A guy will start off providing, and then as the years go on, he will gradually, you know, once you're married to him and stuff, because you expect him to be a provider because he's been providing for the past 5 years, suddenly when you get married, he starts to intentionally sabotage his own business, or he stops working as hard, and then you go from being 100% provided for to going 90-10, so you're paying 10% of the bills. Then 1 year later, it's 80-20. And then a year after that, it's 70-30. You're paying 30% of the bills. Then after that, it's 60-40. And then once you're 10 years into the marriage, finally, it is 50-50. And now he is resting in his femininity. He is living his soft life. And so I've seen this happen so many times. A lot of men use that strategy. They will reel you in the beginning, or in the honeymoon phase or whatever. They'll reel you in with romance, or they'll reel you in with your emotions. They will use money and emotions to manipulate you. Okay, so a lot of men will do this. So this causes women to, over time, they will become a married femcel or a woman who's a femcel, and then she doesn't know why. You know how they say if you put a frog in boiling water, it'll jump out? But then if you put a frog in water and then you just slowly turn up the heat, it will like burn to death. So this happens to a lot of women in their relationships and marriages. So most of the time, a guy who's actually smart, he's not going to start off by just saying, oh yeah, I just want to impregnate you and abandon you. No, he's not going to start off by telling you that. He's going to start off by being nice. He's going to start off by giving you flowers. He's going to start off by taking you on romantic vacations. He's going to pull out all the stops. He will take you on a $500 shopping spree. He'll spend $1,000 on you in one night. So he'll start off by giving you all of these nice things. He may not do all of those nice things in the very beginning because that's love bombing. So if he's not a love bomber, usually he will kind of spread out the love bombing over the course of a year. You know, so like he'll spread it out over 1 or 2 years. You know, he's wining and dining you. He's taking you to all these fancy places. But then as the years go on, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, 20 years, now not only has he gotten used to you, not only have you invested 7 years of your life into him, but maybe you're starting to get a bit wrinkled. Maybe you're starting to gain a little bit of weight. Maybe he's used to your sexual, you know, how you guys have sex or whatever, and he's looking for something different, but he didn't tell you. So this disappointment is something that a lot of married women face within about the first 10 years of marriage. The average marriage lasts around 9 years, the last time I checked the stats. And then also there's this phenomenon called the 7-year itch. So 7-year itch, they're talking about people who tend to cheat and stuff after like 7 years. I actually think a lot of men are cheating before that. I do consider things like pornography, messaging other women. I do consider all of those things to be different forms of cheating. So it may not be on the same scale. It's not as extreme as having a whole baby or something, but it's still on the cheating spectrum, in my opinion. So a lot of guys who end up doing this cheating after 7 years, usually that guy was already doing other habits that led him to the cheating. So maybe he started off by just looking up the nearest strip club, you know, so maybe he lied and said that he went on a business trip, but then he just went to the strip club. Or maybe he lied and said that he was talking to Joe when he was actually talking to Joanna on the phone. And then maybe he started calling phone sex operators when you were at work. So he'll start off by doing these little teeny tiny things, and then over time it'll kind of build up. So this is something else that causes women to become like these married femcels, or like these femcels in relationships, because it's almost like she's a shell of herself. It's like she's numb inside, or like she has disconnected from that part of herself because she literally doesn't feel emotionally safe. She doesn't feel emotionally safe enough to even open herself up to that man. She doesn't feel emotionally safe enough to really express her sensuality with that man because he has not created that safe space for her. In fact, he would rather spend his time pursuing the perfect looking, IG models or whatever. Like, he would rather spend his time talking to professional ex-workers rather than talking to her. She's not a professional ex-worker. She is she's like an amateur, if that makes sense. She's an amateur according to him. Some men actually prefer ex-workers, and they need to admit this. This is why you're not going to hear me shame ex-workers, because I already know the game. I know that some men, they literally prefer ex-workers. They literally prefer a transactional relationship. And yes, I'm talking about a lot of black men, because according to my studies, that is a pattern that I have found. A lot of black guys in particular, it's almost like they prefer this ex-worker culture. So that causes a lot of women to become these married femcels because they feel like they'll never measure up. She doesn't know how to dance on the pole. She doesn't know how to do all this shit and like wear all these super high stripper heels and do all these moves. She didn't learn how to do that. Nobody told her that that is what she was going to have to do to keep this man. And so for all of the women who think that like, oh, all it takes is a couple months of vetting and then every aspect of his character. Well, that's not true, because human beings literally don't work like that. Sometimes a person can experience a trauma that triggers them to behave differently. Sometimes life can happen and that person, maybe they used to be a happy person, now he's depressed. And I've talked on this channel multiple times about how most men have bad coping mechanisms. So maybe when you first met that man, he was successful in his business. He didn't need to do any coping mechanisms because his money was on point. His body was on point. He didn't go bald yet. He still had all of his hair. He still had a six-pack. So he was winning when you first met him. But as he hit his 40s, 50s, and 60s, the business started to dry up. He started to get a beer belly. He started to go bald. And so now all of these additional inferiority complexes crept into his life unbeknownst to him. And so he didn't have the time to prepare for it. I've talked about this multiple times. Men are not out here just studying psychology. They're not out here reading these self-help books. They're not reading relationship books like how women are. And so a lot of men, they're very, they kind of almost let life happen to them in some cases, or they will just allow these mental illnesses to creep onto them. A lot of women are the main ones who are on these spiritual journeys and stuff. I've talked about this in other videos about how 75% of the patients in therapy offices are women. It's not because women are more mentally ill. It's not because of that. Because if it were, then you would see more women in prison. But men are 16 times more likely to go to prison than women. So it's not that women are just more mentally ill. It's that women are more proactive about their mental health than men in general. And so for a lot of women who get into these relationships, maybe when they first met the guy, he was thriving in life. So he was in his 20s, he was in his mid 30s. The world was at his feet. He was at the most privileged point that he will ever be in his life. And so that's the kind of stuff that women cannot predict. You can't predict where that man is going to be 5 or 10 years from now. But for a lot of women, especially women who get into marriages or they believe in marriage or whatever, that marriage lasts a lifetime. So a lot of these women, they'll get into a marriage. They didn't know that his business was going to dry up 5 years later. They didn't know that the economy would change, because some people's businesses are actually based on a certain aspect of the economy that is no longer going to exist. Think about like the dot-com boom back in the 90s. Think about how social media became popular. So the way the economy works is that certain things will rise and decline. Certain trends will come and go. So if a woman is not very educated, and by the way, there's no such thing as a woman who knows everything. So if that woman, if she doesn't really know all of the future financial trends, she doesn't know where AI is going, she doesn't know if they're going to start regulating AI, or, she has no idea what's going to happen. So maybe when she first got with this guy, she truly believed in him. Generally speaking, if a woman is in a relationship with a man, or if she trusts him enough to marry him, It's because she believed in him. That's why she married him. She believed in his business. She believed in his dreams. She believed in what he had to offer. So that's why she was willing to get taken off the market. She was willing to give up all that pretty privilege, all that male validation, going out to the bar, getting all these free drinks or whatever. She was willing to give up all of that so that she could be with him because she believed in him. But sometimes what will happen is the man, he will use weaponized incompetence, and he'll say, oh, I'm married now. I need to spend more time with the kids. So let me stop being a sportscaster. Like, I know of this one girl, she married a guy who was a sportscaster. And over time, this guy literally stopped doing his career because he would say stuff like, oh, well, we have kids. I want to spend more time with the kids. So that sounds great, right? Doesn't that sound wholesome? Like, oh, he's such a good dad. He wants to spend more time with the kids. No, now, a few years later, now that woman, she's in a hypogamous relationship. And now he is a full-on stay-at-home dad. And she is the one who is paying 100% of the bills. And I'm not saying, hey, if it works for you, it works for you. But I know that the majority of women, they're not really looking for that to be their story. A lot of women, they either want to build wealth with the guy, which I also don't recommend, but whatever. A lot of women, they either want to build wealth somehow, or they want to retire. They want to be able to live off of dividends and stuff. So it's like, okay, if that guy wanted to quit his career, he could have at least retired early and just lived off of all the dividends or something, or lived off of all of his investments. But no, a lot of men, they will gradually start to become lackadaisical because he knows that he's got a hard-working black woman by his side. He's got a hard-working Hispanic woman cleaning up all of his shit, scrubbing the toilets, scrubbing the bathtubs. So he's got a free maid and a free ex-worker and a free womb. So he can have as many children as he wants. So he gets to have this status of being this family man. Meanwhile, she's the one doing the work behind the scenes. So this is a part of why a lot of married women or women in relationships can become femcels. They can become involuntarily celibate because their body is literally just not turned on by that guy anymore. She is not turned on by cooking and cleaning for 10 hours a day. That doesn't make her feel sensual. She never gets taken on vacations. I've noticed for a lot of women, we have different things that make us feel turned on in a sensual way. One of those things is getting taken on vacations. Or at least I know for me, that's one of those things. Like if I'm at the beach, if I'm just relaxing, if I've had a spa day, if I got to wear my bikini all day, I've got a nice tan going on, that's going to make me feel a lot more relaxed. And I know that that's the case for a lot of women. A lot of women, they feel sensual because they feel relaxed. They don't feel emotionally, physically, and spiritually overwhelmed. So for a lot of women, the key to their sexuality is them just feeling peaceful and them feeling safe and them feeling relaxed. And so a lot of women in these relationships, especially the ones that become dusty over time, that man, he doesn't take her on any vacations anymore. So there's literally no scenario that he has set up to even make her feel sensual. He's not putting the rose petals on the bed or, running a nice bath with the essential oils and stuff. He's not doing that kind of stuff for her. So there's literally not even an opportunity for her to even feel turned on. So this is why a lot of those women, they become femcels. And then they get jealous of the women who don't have to deal with those problems. They get jealous of single women because the single women don't have a guy drowning out their emotions. They don't have a guy siphoning off their emotions or siphoning off all their energy all the time. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Do you know of a married femcel? Was your mother a married femcel? Is your sister a married femcel? Do you have aunties or cousins or coworkers who are married femcels? Do you know of any women who are femcels in their relationship? And you know that they are sexually unsatisfied in their relationship because some of them will even talk about it? What do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.